How do I survive as an introvert in sales? Not only am I an introvert, but I'm also overly empathetic and have a little social anxiety. Sounds like I'm in the wrong field, right? Well, let's see how I make it work. First off, let's be clear on what an introvert actually is. So it states an introvert is a person whose personality is characterized by a preference for quiet, solitude, and internal reflection, drawing energy from spending time alone rather than from social interaction. So this is me to the T. I enjoy talking to people. I really like learning about people and having conversations with people. And I also like group settings, more so smaller group settings. But I have my limit. So I have my limit as far as interacting with other people goes and how long I can actually interact with people before I feel drained and want to go into solitude. So I'm in insurance sales, and with most people in insurance sales who start out, they make outbound calls for like auto and home. So that's what I started out doing. The goal was to make at least 100 outbound calls a day. It didn't take me long to realize that I hated it. The main reason I hated it wasn't making the 100 calls in a day or trying to make 100 calls in a day. That was miserable in its own right. But what really sucked is when I finally got someone on the phone, I felt like I had to try to convince them to stay on the phone. I had to convince them of what I was trying to offer them. And then if they did stay on the phone, I had to convince them to buy what I was selling. So it was kind of like being like, as an introvert, being at a party and me going up and approaching multiple people, or just going up to people at a party and approaching them and trying to entertain them. I would never do that in a million years. So how I rectified the situation as far as making outbound calls or feeling like I was in that convincing energy, having to reach out to people and trying to convince them to stay on the phone with me and talk to me, was that I switched to working in a call center and making inbound calls. This was much better because I felt like I was actually talking to people who were reaching out to me and actually wanted my help and expertise. So in a sense, them approaching me at a party and trying to start a conversation versus the other way around, which is more my speed. So I didn't feel like I was convincing them. If anything, I really felt like I was helping them, which brought, that empathetic part of me. I enjoy helping people. I really like solving people's problems for the most part, not always, but I do like helping people. So that is what I feel like I was doing for the majority of the call, or what I feel like I'm doing for the majority of the call when getting inbound calls. But this presented another problem. Now I was talking to way too many people in my day. So my first job in a call center was with Progressive. Do not get me wrong, with Progressive, I feel like that was my best employer ever. If you ever get a chance to work for Progressive, please do. It's not a perfect employer. No employer is perfect, but they, I would say, came pretty close to meeting like all my needs as far as what I would want in an employer. There was one big issue, which is the reason why I left, but overall, I really enjoyed my time at Progressive. But I just talking to people back to back, like we were really busy. Like my time there was really busy. Like it was slow around the holidays. That's when things got slow. But after that, like when it started getting warm out, people were trying to insure like their boats, their motorcycles, things like that. Tax time, people were trying to get their insurance. It was super busy, and I was taking calls back to back with really no break in between. And it got to be too much. So I did switch to another job, which is the job I have now. Actually, when I stopped working there, I switched to an in-person manufacturing job where I was talking to literally no one, and for the most part I was working by myself. I remember my first day, I was just like, oh my God, I don't have to talk. I do not have to speak. I was so happy. I was literally just working, doing my little easy little work alone, listening to my podcast. Oh my God, dream job. But I could not stay there because I wasn't making no type of money. So I had to go back to insurance. So I went to the job I have now and basically doing the same thing, taking inbound calls. So what I planned on doing is I knew at some point I was going to get very burnt out with taking inbound calls. So I did what I tried to do at Progressive, is work a later shift. So I was able to work the later shift really easy. I was able to get that shift very easily. And that definitely solved that problem as far as getting like really burnt out really fast. So of course, if you work later shift, you know, at some point you're not going to really get too many calls. So I'd say the first half of my shift, I'm getting calls pretty consistently. It's still a slow time. It's pretty slow right now. So even at the beginning of my shift, I'm not really getting that many calls, but still kind of getting enough calls. And then the other half of my shift, like maybe after lunch, barely none, maybe one call I'll get. So I like having that predictability. I really don't know if that's just my personality, but I like predictability. Sorry, that's just who I am. And knowing that I'm really not gonna get any calls the second half of my shift, I know what's gonna happen. It's really predictable, and it keeps me from burning out. Like, even though it's a late shift, you'd think I would be super tired and drained at the end of the shift. I'm not. It really, like, not having to take so many calls all day through the whole shift, it really keeps me from burning out. And that's the number one thing I say about being an introvert that's difficult, is getting just really drained from interacting with people for too long. And again, it's not like I don't like interacting with people. It's just if it goes on for too long, I am super drained. So yes, working a later shift is making my sales suffer. But again, like I said, it is a slow time anyways. So once things pick up, which is October, I plan on switching my shift back to working during the day. So the one part about being overly empathetic is I can really easily sense when people are really uncomfortable, or if they're, you know, just not comfortable, or they're trying to get off the phone, or they're trying to like back out of the conversation. Just me being in sales, being a salesperson, I'm not supposed to let that happen. So two things that they really like hammer into you, like in sales, is to ask for the sale, number one, and to rebuttal. So if someone's giving you some type of so ask for the sale, whatever. Once you get done, you know you're making your sales presentation. What are they doing? Oh, this is weird. This is really weird. Okay, that was weird. Okay. Sorry, this car was being weird. You know, you gotta stay on your P's and Q's no matter where you are. So I've combated asking for the sale. That kind of comes with that social anxiety, like being kind of nervous or uncomfortable with kind of stepping out of your comfort zone and kind of being more assertive. But I've kind of gotten past that because I do like to challenge myself. So that is definitely one thing about me, is I like to challenge myself to get outside of my comfort zone. And I do that a lot. And I like being comfortable, but I know there's no growth. There's really no growth in the comfort zone. So that is definitely something about my personality that I like, is I will always challenge myself to get out of my comfort zone. And, you know, asking for the sale, I've moved past that discomfort, and I do that because one of my managers when I was at Progressive, they told me, they said, you went through all that trouble of doing the quote, doing the sales presentation, giving this person the information they need. You've earned the right to ask for the sale. So I've gotten past that. But I definitely struggle with rebuttals because I can really sense when someone's uncomfortable, when they just want to get off the phone. But I also learned from one incident where I sensed someone was uncomfortable. They were just like, let me think about it. Okay, let them off the phone. The next day, I saw that someone else in my same company had sold them a policy the very next day. So how I think of rebuttals is that you really need to dig deep just to make sure you're covering all your bases, just to make sure you leave no stone unturned. If they're questioning anything, make sure you answer all their questions. If you see they're really missing out on something, like really challenge what they're saying. So I'm still working on that end of the sales thing, is the rebuttals, because not only, are you kind of challenging them and trying to really discover like what's keeping them from wanting, this policy, but you have to really think on your feet. There are common, things where people are trying to get off the phone and you have to rebuttal what they say. It's some common things, such as, I have to ask my wife about it or my husband about it. Let me talk to my wife, or let me think about it is a big one, or I'm busy, I have to do this or that. So those are common ones, but there's some that come up where you kind of have to think on your feet. That's definitely one that's challenging for me, is the rebuttals, because I can really sense when someone's uncomfortable. And that's just me in insurance sales. Of course, there's other sales positions. There you have your real estate agents, things like that. And I would say the main thing to me is with sales is building relationships. And with me working in a call center or for like a big company, I don't have to really build those relationships except for on that one phone call, which is another good thing about being an introvert. I don't know why I'm so weird. I don't like, even if I enjoy talking to someone, I don't want to continue to talk to them multiple times. Like, I hate that. I don't know why. And like with my first job in the office, I would have to sell the policy, and then, if they filed a claim, I have to follow up with them. Just the follow up, there's always going to be some type of follow up when you're working in the office. But working in a call center, we have a customer service department. I don't have to deal with that. So yeah, I think that's the main thing about sales, is kind of building a relationship. But it is more of me building that relationship on that one call. But I kind of look at it as just kind of building rapport just on that one call. And with some people it's easy to do, other people it's not so much. It's not as easy. Depends on the personality. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm dealing with being an introvert working in sales. I basically switched from outbound calls to taking inbound calls, so I don't feel like I'm, approaching people. I switched to working a late shift, so I don't have to talk to as many people. Even though I'm an introvert, I still challenge myself to step outside my comfort zone and, ask for the sale, get those rebuttals. I'm still working on that one. And also, as an introvert, I don't like constantly talking to the same person more than once. So that's also a good thing about working in a call center. I only have to talk to someone once, unless I have to, call them back for a certain reason. But yeah. Well, let me know what you think about this. You can also check out my other video where I talk about just being in sales in this day and age in 2025, being in health insurance sales, and what people think about me and how people talk to me or treat me. So yeah, you can check on that video next. Let me know what you think about this. Are you an introvert in sales? What type of sales are you in? How do you deal with being an introvert in sales? I'm so curious. Please let me know. All right, bye.